I always believed in the idea that real love, was about patience, about understanding, about giving more than you take. But what happens when you're the only one giving? When the person you're fighting for doesn't even respect you? That was the question I had been too afraid to ask myself for years. Olivia and I had been married for 6 years. Long enough for the spark to dim, but not long enough for the foundation to crumble, or so I thought. It wasn't like we started off bad. When we first got together, she was warm, affectionate, and fun. She laughed at my jokes, reached for my hand without thinking, and made me feel like I was the center of her world. But somewhere along the way, something changed. Or maybe it was always there, waiting for me to notice. While you're here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from. I'd love to know. It started small, little jabs disguised as jokes. Oh, Jake, you don't know anything about fashion. Just what I pick out. A chuckle, a pat on the chest, a quick dismissal of my taste. Then it escalated. I swear, you're hopeless in the kitchen. How have you survived this long without me? It became routine, these casual cuts in front of friends, small humiliations that everyone laughed at but left a pit in my stomach. I try not to let it get to me, but over time, the laughter started to sound different. Less like harmless fun and more like a performance where I played the fool. The worst was when we were with her family. Olivia had a way of putting me down that made her mother smirk and her father shake his head. Jake, maybe one day you'll actually make enough for Olivia to stop working, her dad said at dinner one night. And instead of defending me, she just laughed. I clenched my jaw, forced a smile, and told myself it wasn't worth starting a fight. But deep down it burned. I wasn't some deadbeat. I worked hard. I provided for us. But no matter what I did, it was never enough for Olivia. She had climbed the social ladder faster than me, surrounding herself with wealthier friends, more expensive tastes. Somewhere along the way, I became a burden instead of a partner. The turning point came at a friend's party. It was a rooftop event, the kind Olivia thrived in. Expensive cocktails, designer outfits, shallow conversations. I was talking to an old friend when I heard Olivia's voice carry over the music. Oh, Jake? He's harmless, she said, laughing. Sweet, but honestly, I have to handle everything. If it weren't for me, he'd probably still be in some tiny apartment eating frozen dinners. I felt my stomach drop. My ears burned as I turned, watching her sip her drink without a care in the world. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. I walked up to her, my voice calm but firm. That what you really think? She blinked, caught off guard. What? I nodded toward the group she was standing with. That I'm just some helpless idiot you have to take care of? She scoffed. Jake, don't be dramatic. It was just a joke. I glanced at the people around her. Not one of them met my eyes. They had all laughed at my expense, but now that I was standing here, confronting her, suddenly no one had anything to say. I exhaled. Right, just a joke. I looked her dead in the eye. So tell me, Olivia, when's the last time you said something about me that wasn't a joke? She rolled her eyes. Oh my God, Jake, can we not do this here? No, I said, because we're always here. In some room, full of people where you make me the punchline. She crossed her arms. You're overreacting. No, I said, my voice even. I'm just finally reacting. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Maybe she realized I was serious. Maybe she knew I had finally hit my limit. Either way, she didn't push it. She just sighed, shaking her head. Fine. Whatever, Jake. And with that, she walked away, disappearing into the crowd. I stood there for a long time, staring at the city lights, my mind racing. Something was wrong. Something deeper than the insults, deeper than the dismissals. Olivia wasn't just unhappy. She was somewhere else entirely. I just didn't know where. Yet, for the next few days after that party, Olivia acted as if nothing had happened. She went about her routine. Long morning showers, checking emails while sipping coffee, heading out for errands, or gym sessions that lasted longer than they should. If she noticed that I was distant, she didn't say anything. Maybe she thought I'd just let it go, like I always did. But something had changed. The cracks in our marriage had always been there, but now I couldn't unsee them. The way she barely looked at me when I spoke. The way she avoided physical contact, like even an accidental brush of hands was too much. The way she seemed lighter, happier, whenever she was out, but drained the second she stepped through our front door. Then came the night that finally broke me. We were at a dinner with friends, one of Olivia's social nights. The restaurant was upscale, dimly lit, filled with the sound of clinking glasses and soft conversation. Olivia looked perfect, as always, hair sleek, makeup flawless, smile effortless. To everyone else, we probably looked like the ideal couple. But I knew better. Halfway through dinner, someone brought up the idea of vacations, and Olivia's eyes lit up. "Jake and I are actually going on a cruise soon," she said, setting down her wine glass. "It's been a while since we've done something exciting." It was the way she said it, with that slight edge in her voice, like spending time with me was some chore she had to endure. A few people chuckled. I forced a smile, ignoring the knot forming in my stomach. Then her friend, Amanda, smirked. "Well, let's hope Jake doesn't get seasick." Can you imagine? Olivia's all dressed up for a romantic night on deck, and Jake's too busy holding onto a railing for dear life. The table erupted in laughter. Olivia laughed the hardest. She even wiped a fake tear from the corner of her eye. I set my fork down, my appetite gone. Actually, I said, my voice calm, "I'm pretty good with boats." Amanda waved a hand. "Oh, come on, we're just teasing." I turned to Olivia. "Yeah, just teasing, right?" She hesitated for the briefest second before brushing me off. "Jake, don't be so sensitive." That was it. Something inside me snapped. I leaned forward, looking her straight in the eye. "Tell me something, Olivia. If I'm such a joke, why are you still here?" The laughter died instantly. The air in the room shifted. Olivia's smile faltered. "Excuse me?" "You heard me," I said, voice steady. "Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like you enjoy making me look like an idiot more than you actually enjoy being my wife." Silence. The kind that makes people shift in their seats. Someone cleared their throat awkwardly. Amanda stared at her drink, suddenly fascinated by the condensation on her glass. Olivia's cheeks burned red. "Jake, stop." "No," I said, my voice firmer now. "Why don't you tell everyone what's so funny? You seem to have plenty of material." She exhaled sharply. "You're being ridiculous." I leaned back, nodding. "Right? Of course. Because God forbid I actually say something when you humiliate me for fun." The table was frozen. Everyone was waiting to see how this would play out. Olivia narrowed her eyes. "I think you need to take a breath." I let out a dry laugh. "No, Olivia." I think I finally took my first real breath in years. For the first time, she didn't have a comeback. She just sat there, gripping her wine glass, anger flickering behind her carefully composed mask. I pushed back my chair and stood. "Enjoy the rest of your night." Then I walked out. I drove around for over an hour, my hands tied on the wheel, my heart still pounding. I should have done that years ago. I should have called her out the first time she made me feel small. The first time she treated me like an afterthought. When I finally went home, the house was dark. Olivia wasn't back yet. I sat in the silence, staring at the walls, my mind racing. What are you still holding on to? I didn't have an answer, but I was going to find one. The house was silent when Olivia finally came home that night. I heard the front door click shut, followed by the soft clatter of her heels being kicked off onto the tile. Normally, she'd come straight into the bedroom, sigh dramatically, and complain about how exhausting the night was. But not this time. This time, she hesitated. She knew. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, waiting. A few seconds later, the bathroom door creaked open, then shut. No words. No sarcastic remarks. Nothing. Good. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She hummed as she poured coffee, scrolling through her phone like she hadn't embarrassed me in front of all our friends. "Do you need anything from the store?" she asked casually, barely looking up. I studied her. "No." She finally glanced at me, her expression unreadable. "Are you going to be weird about last night?" I took a sip of my coffee, my jaw tight. "You mean the part where you made a joke out of me in front of everyone? Or the part where you didn't bother coming home until 2 in the morning?" Her eyes flickered with irritation. "Jake, I was out with friends. Do I have to text you my every move now?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She scoffed. "You're overreacting." I didn't argue. I just nodded once, setting my mug down before walking past her. I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to start a fight. But I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Not anymore. That night, I found the first real clue. I had gone into the closet to grab a hoodie when I noticed something tucked behind a row of her shoe boxes, a small, gift-wrapped box. I frowned, pulling it out. It was sleek, wrapped in dark blue paper, tied with a ribbon. I knew this wasn't for me. My birthday had passed months ago. Our anniversary wasn't for another half a year. And Olivia wasn't the type to buy spontaneous gifts. Not for me, anyway. I turned the box over and found a small card tucked underneath the ribbon. Can't wait to see you soon. Oh, I felt my stomach twist. Oh, Olivia. I clenched my jaw, tearing the ribbon off and lifting the lid. Inside was an expensive-looking watch, sleek, black, modern. Definitely not my style. And worse, I had seen this exact watch before. I closed my eyes, trying to remember. Where had I seen it? Then it hit me. Mark, our personal trainer. The guy Olivia had insisted we start training with months ago. I had noticed it on his wrist during a session. He had even commented about how it was his favorite brand. Everything clicked. The random late-night outings. The way she had suddenly started staying late after workouts. The way she had been distant, detached. Almost as if she was counting down the days until she didn't have to pretend anymore. I gripped the box, my knuckles turning white. So this was it. This was who she was throwing our marriage away for. I could have stormed into the living room and confronted her right then and there. Could have demanded answers, thrown the watch in her face, asked how long she had been making a fool out of me. But I didn't. Instead, I took the watch out of the box, walked into the garage, and grabbed a hammer. 1, 2, 3. A single swing and the glass face shattered, cracks spreading through the sleek black surface. Another hit, and the metal casing bent inward. I kept going until it was unrecognizable, until it was just a pile of useless, broken parts. I took a deep breath, staring at the mess in my hand. Then I swept it into a plastic bag, walked back inside, and stuffed it right back into the box. Olivia wouldn't know until she opened it, until she tried to hand it to him, looking for that rush of excitement, only to be met with destruction. Let her explain that. The next morning, she was already dressed when I walked into the kitchen. She looked up at me, then down at her phone, like she was waiting for me to say something. But I didn't. I just grabbed a cup from the cabinet, filling it with coffee. After a moment, she sighed. Are you still mad? I stirred my drink, my back to her. Why would I be mad? She frowned, shifting her weight. Last night, you barely said anything to me. I took a slow sip, letting the silence stretch. Then I turned to her, keeping my expression neutral. Everything's fine, Olivia. She narrowed her eyes slightly, like she was trying to figure me out. Then she forced a smile. Good. She grabbed her purse. I have errands to run. Don't wait up for me. I watched as she walked out the door, her keys jingling as she locked it behind her. The second she was gone, I pulled out my phone and opened a search engine. How to track a phone without them knowing. I had always believed that if something was broken, you fixed it. You didn't just throw it away. That's what marriage was supposed to be, something you fought for. But standing in my kitchen, staring at my phone screen, watching the loading bar of a tracking app creep forward, I knew Olivia had already thrown us away. She just didn't have the guts to admit it. It wasn't hard to set up. Olivia wasn't careful. She used the same passwords for everything, and I had access to our shared account on her phone. A few taps, a couple of permissions granted, and suddenly, I had her exact location anytime I wanted it. I spent the next few days watching. She wasn't even subtle. Her errands took her across town to places she had no reason to be. Expensive restaurants, hotels, his gym. She'd leave for a quick trip to the store and somehow end up parked in the same lot where Mark trained his clients. It was almost insulting how little effort she put into hiding it. But the real confirmation came when I followed her. That Friday, she told me she was meeting Amanda for drinks. I smiled, nodded, kissed her on the cheek, and told her to have fun. Then, the second she was gone, I grabbed my jacket and keys, got in my car, and pulled up the tracking app. I knew exactly where she was headed before she even got there. The parking lot outside the lounge was dimly lit, but I didn't need light to see what was happening. Olivia pulled in, parked, and sat in her car for a moment, probably checking her reflection. Then Mark's car pulled up beside hers. He leaned out of the driver's side window, grinning, saying something that made her laugh. She laughed. Not the forced, polite chuckle she gave me these days, but a real, genuine laugh. the kind she used to save just for me. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles turning white. So this was it. I expected anger to take over. Expected my pulse to hammer in my ears, my blood to boil. But instead, I felt calm. Cold. Like everything had suddenly clicked into place. I didn't need a dramatic confrontation. Didn't need to scream or throw punches. That would be too easy. Olivia had been disrespecting me for months, possibly longer. Did she really think she could keep walking all over me? No. She was about to learn what real consequences felt like. The next morning, over breakfast, Olivia sipped her coffee, scrolling through her phone. I was thinking, she said, not even looking at me, maybe we should upgrade to the premium package for the cruise. You know, get one of the VIP suites. I lifted an eyebrow. You mean the cruise I booked? The one I planned? She waved a hand. Come on, Jake. You know I like the finer things. I smirked. Oh, I know. You're right, I said. You deserve the best. She blinked, momentarily caught off guard. Then she smiled, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. See? This is why I married you. I squeezed back, my grip just a little too tight. Yeah, I said. It is. Over the next week, I put my plan into motion. I called the cruise line and spoke to the guest services department, explaining that my wife and I would be arriving separately. I made sure her access to the room and amenities was tied specifically to my account. I asked if it was possible to make adjustments mid-trip. Absolutely, sir, the representative said cheerfully. We're here to accommodate any last-minute changes you need. Perfect. Then, I froze her credit cards. Just hers. I made sure to set it up so that she wouldn't notice until she tried to use them. I also transferred all of our shared savings into an account under my name. If Olivia was going to throw our marriage away, she wasn't taking a dime of mine with her. And the final touch? A handwritten note, carefully folded and tucked into an envelope. Not too emotional, not too dramatic, just the truth. Hope Mark can book you a flight home. I'm enjoying the cruise without you. The night before we left, Olivia was practically glowing. She was excited, maybe even looking forward to some space from me once we got on the ship. She had no idea what was coming. You know, she mused as she packed. I might go to the spa as soon as we board. Just relax, unwind. You don't mind, do you? I smirked. Not at all. Enjoy yourself. She beamed. You're the best, Jake. I leaned in, kissed her on the forehead, and smiled. I know. The morning of the cruise, everything went smoothly. We boarded together, checked into our suite, and Olivia marveled at the luxury. Now this, she sighed, sinking into the plush bed, is exactly what I needed. I smiled. Yeah, you needed this. Just not in the way you think. That evening, just as the sun set over the water, Olivia turned to me with a small, almost hesitant smile. Hey, listen, I was thinking I might go meet up with Amanda at the lounge for a bit. Amanda wasn't on this cruise. I nodded. Of course. Take your time. She kissed my cheek. Thanks, babe. I'll see you later. And with that, she walked out, completely unaware that this was the last time she'd ever walked back in. I gave an hour, long enough for her to get comfortable wherever she was sneaking off to. Then I grabbed my backpack, my wallet, and my phone and made my way to the guest services desk. Hi, I said to the concierge. I need to make a change to my reservation. My wife won't be continuing the trip with me. The woman behind the counter smiled politely. Of course, sir. Would you like her ticket transferred or canceled? I smiled back. Cancel it. The second the ship docked at the next port, Olivia would be escorted off. No access to the room. No credit cards. No way back on board. The night air was thick with salt, and the distant hum of the ship's engines vibrated through the deck. I leaned against the railing, watching the dark waves roll beneath the moonlight. Somewhere on this massive ship, Olivia was laughing, sipping expensive cocktails, maybe even tangled up in some secret corner with Mark, thinking she had gotten away with everything. She had no idea her time was up. I checked my watch. Another hour until we docked. Another hour until everything fell apart for her. A part of me had expected to feel guilty by now, to feel something, but all I felt was a cold satisfaction. This wasn't revenge, it was justice. An hour later, the ship's horn blasted as we pulled into the Jamaican port. I strolled through the hallways, hands in my pockets, feeling lighter than I had in years. Down in the security office, I had left clear instructions. Olivia Dawson's guest privileges had been revoked. She was no longer a passenger on this ship. As I walked back toward the main lounge, I caught a glimpse of her through the glass doors of the casino. She was standing at the bar, grinning, her body angled toward Mark, her hand playfully touching his arm as she whispered something in his ear. She was drunk, relaxed, arrogant. I stepped back just out of sight, watching. Mark leaned in closer, his hand resting on the small of her back. They thought they were untouchable, that they were in their own little bubble, free of consequences. Then, over the intercom, a smooth, professional voice spoke. "Would passenger Olivia Dawson please report to the front desk immediately? This is an urgent matter." I watched as she stiffened, her expression flickering with confusion. Mark frowned. "What was that about?" She shook her head. "I don't know. Probably nothing." Mark smirked. "Maybe they found out you're cheating on your husband." She gasped, playfully smacking his arm. "Shut up." I smiled to myself. "Oh, you're about to wish it was a joke." By the time I made it to the lobby, Olivia was already at the front desk, her body language tense. A uniformed crew member stood in front of her, her expression firm but polite. "I don't understand," Olivia said, her voice rising. "There has to be some kind of mistake." The woman remained professional. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but your ticket has been canceled. You're no longer a registered guest on this cruise." Olivia let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "That's impossible. My husband." She turned, scanning the room. And then she saw me. I took a step forward, slipping my hands into my pockets. "Hey, Liv." The panic in her eyes was instant. "Jake, tell them this is a mistake." I cocked my head. "A mistake?" She grabbed my arm. "What's going on?" I slowly pulled away. "You tell me, Olivia. I'm just following cruise policy. Unauthorized guests can't stay on board." Her mouth opened, then closed. "Unauthorized, what? You and Mark had a good run?" I continued, my voice casual. "But the trip's over for you." Her face drained of color. "Jake, you're not serious." The crew member cleared her throat. "Mrs. Dawson, we have arranged for you to disembark at this port. If you have any questions, you can direct them to our security team." Olivia spun back toward her. No, I'm not getting off this ship. My things are in my room. My passport, already packed," I said. "Your luggage is waiting at the dock." Her breath hitched. "Jake, please." I could see it now. The desperation creeping in. The realization that this wasn't just a bad dream. This was real. She turned to the crew, her voice frantic. "I have rights. You can't just throw me off." The woman remained calm. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have no choice. Your name is no longer registered in our system." I let out a slow breath, savoring the moment. "You should probably find Mark," I said, my tone almost sympathetic. "I'm sure he'll help you figure things out." Her eyes darted around the lobby. "Mark." Her voice trailed off. Then, for the first time, a different kind of fear settled in. I smirked. "Oh, he doesn't know, does he?" She shook her head, her lips parting like she was about to say something, but no words came out. I leaned in just a little, lowering my voice. "You thought I was stupid. You thought you could sneak around behind my back, make a fool out of me. But you're the fool, Olivia. You traded your husband for a guy who won't even claim you in public." Her chest rose and fell rapidly. "Jake, please. I can explain." I took a step back. "I don't care." She blinked, stunned. "You already made your choice," I said. "Now you get to live with it." As the security team escorted Olivia off the ship, I walked toward the upper deck, watching from above. I saw the moment she realized she had nothing. No phone service. No credit cards. No way to book a flight home. Just a suitcase and a massive mistake. A dock worker handed her an envelope, the note I had written. I watched as she unfolded it, her fingers trembling. "Hope Mark can book you a flight home. I'm enjoying the cruise without you." Her entire body tensed. Then she broke. She screamed something at the sky, but her voice was lost in the wind. She turned in circles, her hands gripping her hair, looking for someone, anyone, who would help her. No one did. Mark was nowhere to be found. I exhaled, letting the last piece of her hold on me disappear into the ocean breeze. Then I turned, walked toward the bar, and ordered myself a drink. I had a vacation to enjoy. The sound of the waves against the hull was hypnotic as I sat on the sun deck, sipping my whiskey, watching the Jamaican port fade into the horizon. Olivia was still down there somewhere, stranded, confused, and panicked. I imagined the moment she realized Mark had abandoned her the second she became inconvenient. The irony was almost poetic. She had thrown away our marriage for him, yet he wouldn't even lift a finger to help her now. I had thought this moment would bring me satisfaction, a final note of justice. But as the ship cut through the open sea, all I felt was peace. For the first time in years, I wasn't tied to her lies. A shadow passed over my table, and I glanced up to see a crew member standing beside me. "Mr. Dawson?" I set my glass down. "Yeah." The man gave a polite smile, but I could see curiosity in his eyes. I wasn't surprised. The whole situation had likely become ship gossip by now. "Your wife attempted to make contact through the dock security office," he continued. "She requested permission to speak with you." I smirked. "And what did security tell her?" "That you revoke her guest privileges and that all matters should be directed through legal channels." "Good." I picked up my drink and took another slow sip. "Did she say anything else?" The man hesitated. "She insisted it was all a misunderstanding. That you overreacted." I chuckled under my breath. "Of course she did. Would you like to respond?" I shook my head. "No. She made her choices. I'm making mine." The crew member nodded, then hesitated again. "Between us," he said in a lower voice, "I've seen a lot of messed up relationship drama on these cruises, but that was one of the most satisfying things I've ever witnessed." I laughed, shaking my head. "Thanks. Enjoy the rest of your shift." As he walked away, I let out a slow breath. Olivia was still trying to spin the situation in her favor, still desperate to manipulate her way back into control. But she had lost. There was nothing left to say. The next morning, I checked my phone and found several missed calls from unknown numbers. Olivia. I ignored them. Then I checked my email. Among the usual spam and work notifications, one subject line caught my eye. "Please talk to me." I hesitated for a second, then opened it. "Jake, I don't know what you think you saw, but it's not what it looks like. Mark and I are just friends. This was a cruel overreaction, and you need to fix this. I'm stuck here with no money, no way home. I need you. We can talk about this like adults. Please call me." I sat back, exhaling through my nose. Even now, after being caught, after being humiliated, she was still lying, still trying to make herself the victim. I clicked delete and closed my phone. By the time the cruise ended and I disembarked back in Miami, I felt like a new man. Lighter. Free. I had already booked a consultation with a divorce attorney before the trip, but now it felt more real. The moment my feet touched the ground, I knew one thing for certain. There was no going back. As I walked through the terminal, I took one last look at my phone. Olivia hadn't stopped trying to reach me. The messages had changed from indignant outrage to desperation. "Jake, I messed up. Please, just call me." I didn't feel anger anymore, just pity. She had made her bed, and now she had to sleep in it. Without me. I turned off my phone, hailed a cab, and gave the driver my address. Home. For the first time in a long time, it actually felt like mine. The moment I stepped into my house, I could still feel the ghost of Olivia lingering in every corner. Her shoes by the door, her perfume clinging to the air, the framed pictures of us still sitting on the shelves, mocking me. But none of it mattered anymore. I was done. I tossed my bags onto the couch, sat down, and pulled out my phone. It was time to move forward. I dialed the number of the attorney I had researched before the trip. It rang twice before a crisp voice answered. "Davis and Porter Law. How can I assist you?" "Yeah," I said, leaning back. "I need to start divorce proceedings." Immediately. A week later, I sat across from my lawyer in his office, the scent of polished wood and expensive leather filling the air. He skimmed through the file I had handed him, flipping through the evidence I had collected, bank statements, text logs, photos from the cruise. When he reached the section detailing how Olivia had been stranded at the port, he let out a low whistle. "That," he said, setting the papers down, "is one hell of a move." I shrugged. I figured she deserved it. He smirked. "I can't say I disagree." He laced his fingers together and leaned forward. "With what you provided, this case is straightforward. Infidelity, financial misconduct, and, considering you were the primary earner, ground for a favorable division of assets." I nodded. "I want everything done fast. No negotiations. No settlements. I don't want to hear from her again." He nodded. "We'll file immediately." She'll be served within days. When Olivia finally received the papers, the meltdown was immediate. My phone, which had been relatively silent for a few days, erupted with messages. "You're divorcing me? Are you insane? Jake, we need to talk. I made a mistake, but we can fix this. Why are you throwing everything away?" I ignored all of them. Then came the guilt tripping. "I have nothing, Jake. You left me with nothing. You can't do this to me." I deleted that one too. The day of the legal meeting, Olivia walked into the lawyer's office looking nothing like the woman who had left for that cruise. Her hair was a mess. Her eyes were puffy, and the confident arrogance she always carried had evaporated. She barely looked at me as she sat across the table. Her lawyer, a middle-aged man in a cheap suit, cleared his throat. "My client would like to discuss a more equitable arrangement regarding the assets." "No," I said, cutting him off. He blinked. "Excuse me? I'm not negotiating," I said, my voice steady. "She cheated. She lied. She made her choices. She can deal with the consequences." Olivia's hands clenched into fists. "Jake, please," she whispered. I met her eyes for the first time in weeks. "No." Silence stretched between us. Her lawyer sighed, shuffled some papers, and finally nodded. "Then we'll proceed with the default terms." I stood, buttoning my jacket. "Good." Olivia looked at me, then, her expression raw with something I couldn't quite place: regret, desperation, maybe even the first glimpse of real accountability. But it was too late for any of it. I turned and walked out without another word. A month later, the divorce was finalized. Olivia was officially out of my life. No more texts. No more calls. No more lies. I stood outside the courthouse, inhaling the crisp air, feeling lighter than I had in years. This was it. The clean break. The new beginning. And for the first time in a long, long time, it had been 3 months since the divorce, and every day had felt like a new opportunity to start over. The apartment I had rented in the city was small but mine. No remnants of Olivia's presence, no reminders of the lies, just empty walls I could fill with my own decisions. The first few weeks had been strange. The silence was deafening at times, and there was a part of me that missed the noise of the old life, even if it had been a life built on manipulation and deceit. But the truth was undeniable. The longer I stayed in that marriage, the more I had lost myself. And now, for the first time in years, I was starting to find who I was again. I put the past behind me, but it wasn't easy. There were nights when I lay awake, replaying the moment I found out about Olivia's affair, the sting of betrayal still fresh in my mind. But with each passing day, I learned to let go. I spent time with old friends, reconnected with the hobbies I'd given up, and started to rebuild a career that had taken a back seat during the years I spent supporting Olivia's ambitions. One evening, I sat at a small cafe downtown, sipping coffee as I flipped through some old papers for a new business idea I'd been toying with. My phone buzzed, breaking my concentration. I picked it up, expecting a work email, but instead, it was a message from an unknown number. "Jake, I need to talk. I made a mistake. Please, I want to fix things." It was Olivia. The message had been sent hours ago, but it had taken me until now to notice. I stared at the screen, the words floating before my eyes, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. The temptation to reach out, to hear her side of the story, to fall back into the drama, was there. But the version of me that had walked away from that toxic relationship wasn't going to let that happen. I had put in the work to move on, and I wasn't about to throw it all away because she was suddenly regretful. I stared at the phone for a moment longer, then hit delete. No explanación, no conversación, just the finality of moving forward. I had learned that lesson too many times before. You can't change people. The best you can do is change yourself. A few weeks later, I sat across from a new acquaintance at a business networking event, a potential partner for the startup I had launched on the side. The conversation flowed smoothly, business prospects exchanged, small talk about the future. Everything felt different. I wasn't the man I had been before. I wasn't looking over my shoulder, wondering if someone was going to betray me. I wasn't worried about keeping up appearances or hiding secrets. The conversation shifted to personal matters. "So, Jake," she asked, her tone casual but curious, "what about your personal life? Are you seeing anyone?" I smiled, leaning back in my chair. "Nope, just focusing on myself right now." Her eyebrows raised in surprise. Good for you. That's really important, you know? Especially after a divorce. I didn't know why I felt the need to say it, but I did. I think it's the best thing that could have happened to me. I lost myself in that marriage, trying to fix things that were never meant to be fixed. Now I'm just finding out who I really am again. She smiled. That's powerful. It's amazing what we can discover about ourselves when we're free. I nodded. It's the freedom I didn't know I needed. It felt like a weight lifted off me in that moment. I wasn't bitter or angry anymore. I had let all of that go, and what was left was peace, a sense of relief. The overwhelming urge to control what happened next was gone, replaced by the willingness to see where life would take me. I woke up early the next morning, the sun barely starting to rise. It was a Saturday, and the city outside was still quiet. I took a deep breath, savoring the fresh air. This was my time. I grabbed my jacket, made myself a coffee, and headed to the local park. The crisp air and the stillness of the early morning reminded me that I was exactly where I needed to be. Alone, but not lonely. I was starting over, but this time it wasn't out of desperation or pain. It was out of choice. I spent the morning walking along the trails, lost in thought, reflecting on everything I had endured and how much stronger I had become as a result. The marriage had drained me, but it had also taught me some invaluable lessons. I was no longer the man who allowed himself to be manipulated. I wasn't the man who stayed silent when things went wrong. I was becoming the man I wanted to be. Later that day, I met with a few potential partners for my business venture. We discussed everything from logistics to growth strategies, and for the first time in years, I felt confident. I was putting my time into something that mattered to me, something I could be proud of. I wasn't just a support role anymore. I wasn't just someone's second choice. By the time evening rolled around, I felt at peace. I had dinner with a few friends, enjoyed some easy conversation, and even laughed, a sound I hadn't heard from myself in a long time. As the night drew to a close, I walked home under the streetlights, my heart light, my mind clear. I passed a jewelry shop along the way. Through the window, I saw a display of watches, one of which caught my eye. I paused, looking at the sleek design. The irony wasn't lost on me. Olivia had given me a similar watch years ago, a symbol of our relationship. But it wasn't just a watch. It had been a reminder of everything I had lost, everything I had given up for someone who never cared about me the way I needed. Now I was free of all that. I didn't need a watch to remind me of the past. I didn't need anything to weigh me down. With a small smile, I walked away from the window. I had everything I needed right now. Thank you for listening to the end. I hope you enjoyed it very much. Don't forget to give a like and tell us in the comments what you would do in such a situation.